Hi there, this is Steven with Synergistic Nutrition. Today I wanted to introduce you or inform you or update you or educate you on the subject of milk. This wonderful liquid has been damaged, polluted, bastardized for generations now by the process of confined animal feeding operations where cows are kept inside of fencing and or pens where they don't have access to any grass. They eat a grain, legume-based feed that nowadays is a GMO feed and a glyphosate-laden feed, glyphosate being a very powerful herbicide that gets into the food system, and when you get it into your body, it puts holes in your GI tract, proven to create a leaky gut, and a leaky gut leads to autoimmunity. So this is an important topic because milk has gotten a bad rap. In the holistic healing arts field, in the naturopathic doctor field, in the holistic medical doctor field, when you have a health condition, you're pretty much instructed to eliminate all dairy. That means even the good dairy from grass-fed cows. And it can be true that when you have a leaky gut that you cannot, you don't benefit from even raw milk from grass-fed cows because you're still going to absorb undigested casein protein from either goat or cow's milk into the bloodstream, and that's going to cause the immune system to attack that protein, which leads to inflammation, which leads to autoimmunity. And so for me, I too have had leaky gut, unfortunately, due to my history, due to what the FDA did to me, putting me in prison, many months of eating prison food, which is GMO, glyphosate-laden food. I believe that was the foundation for why when I ate a raw vegetarian diet, that the naturally occurring toxins in nuts and seeds and vegetable juices, calcium oxalate being the main one, lectins being other ones, that they put holes in my gut. That in the past when I ate those foods, they didn't do that. So I believe that this time in prison and this time that of eating glyphosate-laden food and GMO foods set the foundation for me to be subject to normal healthy vegetarian foods, causing me this harm and then leading me to not be able to consume dairy products temporarily. But that was only for about 8 months. I recently tested myself on the QEST-4 device. That's QEST-4. That device is very phenomenal, very accurate in its ability to determine what supplements, what foods are compatible or resonant with your body as opposed to dysresonant. And I'm testing very good, green on that. Plus when I consume the raw milk or the raw cream, I'm doing fine. I feel so much better, in fact. I adhere 95% of the time to the raw primal diet taught by Diogenes van der Planet. So that means raw meats. So for a very compromised body that you're not efficient at detoxing cooked food toxins, then the raw primal diet can be the most regenerative, the most health-giving. So I find that to be true for my body, and therefore for many years, since 1997, I first started to do the raw primal diet. At that time I had severe chronic fatigue syndrome symptoms, and it was like life-giving. I felt so much better. So I adhered to eating the raw meats and the raw milk and the raw eggs and raw vegetable juices and thrived on it. And after about 11 months of that, I went back to eating some cooked, and I did the cooked and raw off and on for many years with more emphasis on raw most of the time. So for any of you out there who struggle for health issues, you need to understand that when you're compromised, your body's ability to detox, your body's ability to make energy are all compromised, typically making both supplementation a requirement to feel good on a daily basis and making raw primal diet the most advantageous diet for regenerating the body. And by regeneration, I mean you're going to literally heal organ systems. So whether it's the pancreas and its inability to produce insulin, or whether it's your cells and their insulin insensitivity and this whole diabetes, blood sugar problem, you're talking about the ability to reverse all that, as Diogenes did. So Diogenes was an amazing example of somebody who had type 1 diabetes, had been on insulin injections for 15 years, on this raw primal diet for many years, basically regenerated his body and reversed all these conditions. So his blood and bone cancer went away, his type 1 diabetes went away, and when he was tested in the blood sugar test, where you take and drink glucose and you have a normal rise of glucose levels and then a time period of how fast your body can lower those glucose levels, his body was able to lower the glucose. It went up to like 154, but then it came down to 74 very quickly. And according to the doctors that do this form of testing all the time and see, the general population base, they said that he had the best control of his blood sugar of anybody they'd ever tested. So that's pretty astounding from somebody who was a, quote, incurable type 1 diabetic. And we know that's because he was on this raw primal diet for so long. So, you're eating meats, they're raw, and there's stem cells in meats, and there's all these nutrients that are destroyed from the cooking process. So raw milk holds a front and center stage position in most everyone's diet, except for when you have the leaky gut and you have to temporarily be off of it. But raw milk has, lactoferrin in it. Lactoferrin is basically, a natural antiseptic. It kills bacteria. You've got immunoglobulins in small amounts, which transfer immunity from that animal to you, as well as kill pathogens. You've got raw fats that literally heal and protect and rejuvenate the brain. So you want to, help somebody with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, or you want to prevent those conditions in your own life, then raw fats from dairy is a superfood for the brain nutrition. You've got vitamin A, D, and K2 in grass-fed milk, because you've got the cows eating grass, and the vitamin K1 in the grass converts into K2 in the animal's body. K2 is the missing fat-soluble vitamin for regulating calcium metabolism in, a really essential manner, which is that K2 is responsible for activating the body's production of matrix GLA protein. Matrix GLA protein will dissolve and remove calcium buildup in the soft tissues. So one of the processes of aging in modern times that doesn't happen in healthy societies is the progressive calcification of the brain and of the soft tissues of the joints and of the arteries, hardening of the arteries. So if you have enough K2 in the diet, which agrarian societies do because they're eating animal products that are all raised on grass, so that was what United States of America history was back in the 1800s, and then you have European culture this is doing this to this day, and the Europeans by and large are much healthier than Americans in my experience. So this vitamin K2 basically activates the creation of matrix GLA protein. You remove the calcium out of the soft tissues, which is proven in animal studies, and you actually activate the creation of your bone cells to create new bone cells. So you're helping to maintain your bone density. So all this osteoporosis stuff that's going on in this culture and saying that you need more calcium, or it's just because you're going through menopause and you have lower levels of estrogen, and saying these are the main causes of osteoporosis is not true. The main cause of osteoporosis is due to a chronic acid pH, where your body has to dissolve alkaline proteins and alkaline minerals out of the bones to meet the pH needs of the blood, to keep it in its very narrow window. And yes, you do have testosterone and estrogen playing a role in bone density, and you also have the vitamin K2 playing a role, and you also have your calcium needs. So if your body stays alkaline, so that your saliva pH is reflecting a 7 to 7.5 pH in the morning, every morning, that's a pH that's going to protect you from your body having to dissolve bone minerals to meet the pH needs of the blood. So if a person simply takes K2 plus, which is an excellent supplement, or they have this raw dairy in the diet, raw butter from grass-fed cows, these grass-fed milk products, you're going to get the K2 in small amounts in the diet, which can be adequate if you don't have any degenerative disease or any existing osteoporosis potentially. So raw dairy, that is raw milk from grass-fed cows, raw milk from grass-fed goats, raw cream from grass-fed cows, they contain the vitamin A, D, and K2, and that K2 plays that role in activating the matrix GLA protein for supporting bone remineralization. But it also contains phosphatase. So phosphatase is an enzyme that enables you to utilize phosphorus, and it plays a role in supporting your utilization of the calcium in the milk and to create bone remineralization. So superfood for supporting bone density is raw milk. I had a client, Suzanne, in the past who had osteoporosis that was adhering somewhat to the raw primal diet, and then she added the raw cow's milk to her diet, and her osteoporosis reversed and went away. So all the press that's been out there to promote the idea that raw milk is a health threat because of the bacteria in it is an absolute lie. The criminality of the existing dairy industry and the criminality of the US government to promote the idea that you have to pasteurize milk needs to be understood. These organizations exist to promote their private agendas, their profits, and they're in bed together. And when you take and raise a cow on grass where all the natural microorganisms in the soil that it's exposed to, its own bacteria counts in its own body, in its own GI tract, in its own milk. It's all healthy. And it's been proven that you can take, say, what's called a pathogenic bacteria, brucelliosis, listeria, whatever, and you can put it into raw milk from grass-fed cows, and the bacteria produce their own antibiotics that's in the milk, and they kill it. And it basically, they're dead. The germ theory of disease that was created and taught by Louis Pasteur was challenged and countered by Antoine Béchamp's discoveries that the germ was not the cause of disease, but it was the terrain of the tissues in question, whether it was plant or animal or human. By terrain, we mean how acidic is the pH, how many toxins are present or not present. And those two things determine whether or not you have conditions right for these organisms to grow. These organisms actually serve a janitorial role of cleaning up the body's terrain, allowing you to detoxify. If you read the book Homotoxicology by Hans Reckeweg, you will find that it's documented that these bacteria that produce the traditional diseases and infections and colds and flus produce an enzyme called hyaluronidase, and hyaluronidase will digest the connective tissue of the body to free up the toxins in the tissues so that they get into the lymph and into the blood and circulate out of the body through the kidneys and the liver. So everyone needs to start understanding that our organisms are not the cause of disease. All natural organisms in nature are not the cause of disease in most instances that I can observe, and or perhaps all. But instead, they are actually designed to help clean up your body. So if you let a cold or flu run its course, you're healthier on the other side of it because your body got detoxification, assistance from the infectious role of these organisms. You know, animals in the wild that live on their native diets of just raw foods have no degenerative disease and no colds or flus ever. If you really understand what's really going on microbiologically, you'll realize that organisms change form dependent upon the food they're eating, whether it's a protein, fat, or starch, and the pH of the environment. So a bacteria will evolve into another bacteria, so, you know, staph will become strep, strep will become pneumococcal, and keep changing dependent upon the pH and the food that they're eating. Viruses change. We know that that's documented by the Microbiome Project, that viruses pleomorphically go from one organism to another organism. And so you could say that one virus becomes another virus, and then it becomes another virus. So the idea that organisms are distinct, monomorphic, mono meaning single expression organisms, is wrong. They change according to the terrain that they're living in. And so that means that there's no such thing as a vaccine against a virus or a fungus or a bacteria. It's an impossibility. You cannot create immunity to a virus, fungus, or bacteria because they change form and expression according to the pH and the particular protein or food substance that they're living on. Royal Rife proved this in his microscopic culture experiments where he could see living organisms at 60,000 magnifications, where he could take a virus that was derived from, say, a tumor cell and he grows it on a protein medium and it stays a virus. He could put it onto a starch medium and it becomes a fungus. He could take that fungus and put it back onto the protein medium and it turns back into a virus. He could also take bacteria and culture them through 17 different expressions. So I pray that the truth is disseminated and understood by all minds throughout the entire world so that we can stop the crime against humanity called vaccinations. There's not one redeeming value to a vaccine because they cannot address immunity. The idea that they call it immunization is a lie because they're not immunizing you against anything. The body determines an infection based upon your toxicity and your immunity and your pH. That's it. That's why I can be around anybody with a cold or a flu or anything and I won't get it, ever. I never do. Because I'm not eating foods that are polluting my body, and I'm not doing things that are polluting my body. I'm keeping it as clean as possible. So I say all this so that you understand that raw milk is the preferred form of dairy because pasteurization destroys its properties. The actual enzyme they look to destroy to determine that milk is fully pasteurized is this enzyme phosphatase. So they have to destroy that to determine that it's fully cooked and fully dead, which means that you're not going to be able to use the calcium in the milk as well because you've destroyed the phosphatase. There's too many people that have recovered their health consuming raw dairy in our modern times from grass-fed cows. There's too many people historically that have used raw dairy in their diet for generations, all thriving. And there's too many times that I've met people who are lumberjack strong men that grew up on a farm and drank raw milk. I remember a kid working for me who was a super, well-built, tall, fully developed man that was born prematurely the size of a Coke bottle. So premature infants without the right nutrition are going to basically be stunted in their growth. So this man was given raw milk growing up as an infant and as a child, so his genetics of his body got the nutrients they need so that there's optimal genetic expression took place and he developed into a full-sized body. So whether you want to go for goat's cheese, which is what I've got here, or cow's cheese, or A2 cow's milk, or goat's milk, or the raw cream, or the super high vitamin butter because it's super high in vitamin A, D, and K2. That is why it's so yellow is the vitamin A content. I get all mine from Amos Miller in Pennsylvania. So he's an Amish farmer that you have a private association membership relationship with him. $25 I think membership fee, and then you get access to all these foods. But you don't have to rely upon him exclusively. If you go to realmilk.com, you can find every state in the country listed and all the farmers in every state who are producing raw milk to get yours locally if possible. If you want to understand the subject better about raw milk, I recommend you read this book called The Untold Story of Milk by Ron Schmidt. Excellent book. I also recommend this book called The Milk Diet by Dr. Porter. Dr. Porter is an MD that basically documents how people used raw milk in the medical profession to help cure people. And they did so by a combination of colostrum and raw milk. So raw, fresh colostrum, raw, fresh milk, 50% of each, combine them and then culture them into a yogurt type product and then consume that exclusively for a period of weeks as a fast, and people were being healed doing that. Also the book called The Milk Book by William Campbell Douglas, also an MD. Excellent book documenting the safety of raw milk from grass-fed cows. So there you have it. This is a food that is important to your health in many ways. It can compensate for the cooked foods in your diet so that cooked foods don't cause as much harm, because this is a living food that's giving you all the enzymes and living proteins that are fully usable, and the fats, as well as small amounts of the growth factor IGF-1 that repairs the gut and repairs other parts of the body. So there you go, raw milk. And if you have any questions, feel free to call us here at Synergistic Nutrition. That would be 864-895-6250. Again, that's 864-895-6250. Thank you for your attention.